Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, going to be talking through a couple player props I like on Prizepicks for tonight's NBA slate on Saturday, March the 25th. Now for this Saturday slate, we only have, I think, 6 games tonight. We do have one game starting at 5 o'clock Eastern time, and then we have like 5 or 6, or I think we have 5 like late night games, so it's a 6-game slate total. Decent amount of props are up on the board right now. Not the best slate overall. I don't see a ton that I love. Taking a first look at the board right now, but I did find 2 plays that I will share in this video, guys. I got 2 fantasy score props I'm liking for today. So as always, we're going to talk through these 2 plays. We're going to share why I like them. Before we do get started, though, as always, if you guys enjoy these Prizepicks videos, if they help you out, make sure you hit that like button down below, hit that subscribe button if you have not yet, and if you guys are new to Prizepicks, you've never checked them out before, you can sign up for Prizepicks and use my promo code Noah. You look at the bottom of the screen. When you sign up for Prizepicks with my promo code, you'll get your first deposit matched up to $100. So check them out. If you have not yet, use that promo code when you sign up, and you will get a $100 match on your first deposit. Now, before we talk through our plays for today, do want to recap our 2 plays from yesterday. Once again, man, the 2 plays we gave out on YouTube yesterday both cashed. So I hope you guys did tail those 2 plays. We took the over on Denny Avia's fantasy score at 29.5. I know that line did get bumped a point, but Avia still went over his fantasy score, even his bump line. He finished with, I think, over 40 fantasy points, had a really good game. Like that matchup a lot for him against the Spurs, and his role increasing right now without Beal and without Kuzma made me really like that fantasy score. And then the other prop that we took was Anthony Davis over fantasy score. Had a little bit of people in the comments, not agreeing with that one, but and that's totally fine. I have no issue with people if people don't agree with my plays. I mean, you don't have to tail these plays. I make these videos to tell you what I'm playing and to share my plays. If you don't like them, you ain't got to play them. But we did get a good game from Anthony Davis last night. His fantasy score line, it was probably, man, it felt like it shouldn't have been a sweat, but it kind of was a sweat. I think he went over, with like 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I mean, he had a great game. He had like 37 points, 14 or 15 rebounds. He didn't really get any assists. He didn't get any defensive stats. I think he had like 1 steal. And we've seen games before where Anthony Davis can get like 3-4 steals, 4-5 blocks. He just hasn't been having those games lately. Maybe I should have looked at like his fantasy or his points prop, or maybe like his points plus rebounds instead of fantasy score. But he came through for us, cashed his fantasy score as well. So hopefully, again, you guys did tail those 2 picks yesterday. We've been on a nice little run lately with our YouTube plays. The last 3 days, we've cashed we've cashed both of our plays. So Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we cashed both of our plays. So we're on a nice little 6-0 run over these last 3 days. Let's try and keep it going into this Saturday slate. So let's talk through the picks I do like for Saturday, guys. We're gonna start off with Nicholas Claxton, his fantasy score prop of 28.5. This is a line that I definitely like. I know the matchup against Miami is not good, and we see a lot of times, we've seen pretty much all season, anytime a center goes up against Miami, their props are going to be lower than normal. Fantasy score, every prop, points prop, rebounds, PRA, just because the matchup is tough. Miami has been one of the toughest matchups for centers this season. But Nicholas Claxton is a really good point per minute player. His minutes are really starting to trend up lately. I've been taking his over fantasy score. I feel like I've taken it like 5 days in a row now. This will probably be like the 5th day in a row that I've taken his over fantasy score. But if you look at Claxton's minutes lately, so last game against Cleveland, 33.5 minutes. The game before that against Cleveland, he played 28 minutes, but he got randomly benched that game for Day'Ron Sharpe. They closed that game with Day'Ron Sharpe over Claxton. I don't think that's something we can expect to happen every night. And then the game against Denver, 31.5 minutes. I think that was a game where he also did not play much in the fourth quarter because it was sort of a blowout. And then against Sacramento, 32.5 minutes. Against OKC, 38.5 minutes. So he's played at least 30 minutes in 4 out of his last 5 games. He's over this fantasy score line in 5 straight. You take a look at his last 5 games. He's gone over in all 5. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, anytime I take a player over, like if they've hit in 5 straight, the day that I take them is the day they don't hit. So we'll see about Claxton today, but I definitely think this line is too low, even despite the tough matchup. Claxton's been playing 30-plus minutes on a nightly basis lately. He's a great point per minute player. You look at this season with the Nets, he's averaging 1.18 fantasy points per minute. And if you look over his last 25 games where he's played at least 30 minutes, he's over this fantasy score line in 24 out of his last 25 games where he's played at least 30 minutes. There was only one game against Cleveland. He played 30 minutes and had just 22.8 fantasy points. Every other game, though, over his last 25, where he's played at least 30 minutes, he's had at least 30.4 fantasy points or more. 30.4, 32, and it just keeps going up. So, and they did face Miami earlier this season. Claxton played 31 minutes and had 33.2 fantasy points. They played them on January the 8th. if we're getting 30-plus minutes from Claxton tonight, I know the matchup's not great, but he's such a good permanent producer that, and he's one of these guys that can, score, rebound, he can get defensive stats, so he has plenty of ways to go over this fantasy score line. It's not like he has to score, 20 points. He can get you, 9 points, 8 rebounds, a few assists, a couple steals, a couple blocks. He's got a lot of ways to go over this line. So I'm going to take the overall Nicholas Claxton fantasy score at 28.5 as our first play for today. And then the other play that I like to pair with that, we're going to go to one of the late night games, talk about CJ McCollum's fantasy score. Now, you look at over his last 5 games, CJ McCollum kind of, been up and down. Had a really big game against the Rockets, but then he's had some disappointing games, like against Charlotte. That was a really good matchup. Surprising to see McCollum do as poorly as he did there. Had a good matchup against the Lakers. Surprising to see him do poorly there. But he did go over against San Antonio. That game was a blowout. I think he did still play pretty good minutes in that game, but he did go over his fantasy score line in a pretty good matchup against the Spurs. He did play, just 30 minutes in that game. That was a blowout. And then the game against Portland, that was a good matchup. Only played 29 minutes, another blowout, but still went over his fantasy score. We shouldn't have to worry about a blowout tonight. This game against the Clippers has a 5.5-point spread, so it's a game that should be competitive. The Pelicans have been involved in a lot of blowouts lately. The game against Charlotte was a blowout. The game against San Antonio was a blowout. The game against the Lakers, they lost by 15. McCollum still played 37 minutes in that game, so I don't want to say that was a blowout. But the game against Portland, he only played 30 minutes. That game was kind of a blowout. They've been involved in a lot of blowouts lately. That shouldn't be the case tonight. We should get a competitive game here. And the Pelicans, they're fighting for playoff position right now. I can't remember exactly where they are in the standings. I think they're outside the top 10. So they need to try and win games if they want to make the play-in tournament. We're seeing CJ McCollum play 35, 36 minutes a night as long as games are competitive. Some of the games lately, his minutes have been a little bit down because there's been some blowouts. But in tonight's game against the Clippers, we should see a competitive game here. We should see CJ McCollum play 35, 36 minutes. And if you take a look at his points per minute this season without Zion Williamson, obviously Zion is still out right now. CJ McCollum averaging 1.08 fantasy points per minute, 28.8% usage rate, second highest usage rate on the team behind Brandon Ingram. And we're just really seeing the Pelicans offense really run through Ingram, McCollum, and we've seen a lot more Jonas Valanciunas lately. There's not a ton of guys outside of those three that can really soak up usage and will demand shot attempts. I mean, the next highest usage guy on the team that's actually in the rotation is Najee Marshall, who has an 18.6% usage rate. So pretty much outside of Ingram, McCollum, and J-Val, there's just a lot of low usage guys on this Pelicans roster, and especially the guys that are like in the rotation. So we should get pretty good usage here for CJ McCollum, pretty good minutes as long as the game's competitive. I like the matchup against the Clippers as well. The Clippers have been a really good matchup for point guards lately, and especially since they acquired Russell Westbrook, their defense against point guards has been really bad. On the season, the Clippers are allowing the 4th most fantasy points per game to the point guard position. But if you look in recent sample, last 15 games, last 7 games, they're allowing the most fantasy points to point guards in recent sample, and it's by a pretty wide margin, ahead of like the Rockets. And the Rockets have been one of the best matchups for point guards all season, and the Clippers have been even better lately. So I think the matchup's really good for CJ McCollum. I'm assuming Kawhi Leonard's probably going to match up with Brandon Ingram. So that should mean probably CJ McCollum gets guarded by Russell Westbrook here because they don't have Paul George right now. So really like the matchup for CJ McCollum. I think this definitely sets up as a better spot for him than it does for Brandon Ingram. He should play 35, 36 minutes here. If the game's competitive, he should average over a fantasy point per minute. And again, I like the matchup for him quite a bit, just given how bad the Clippers have been defensively against point guards lately. So these are going to be 2 picks. I run kind of as an early 2-pick entry for today, guys. I'm going to have some more plays posted for today, though, over on Patreon. Don't know how many plays I'm going to give out today because it is kind of a smaller slate, but I'll still try and find at least 2 or 3 plays to share over there. If you guys want more Prizepicks plays from me, you can check out the Patreon, linked down below in the description. But again, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope it did help. If you enjoyed, make sure you hit that like button down below. Hit that subscribe button if you have not yet. And if you guys are new to the channel and you've never checked out Prizepicks before, you can sign up for Prizepicks. You can use my promo code NOAH. You'll get your first deposit matched up to $100 when you do sign up for Prizepicks with my promo code. Check them out if you have not yet. Make sure to use that code when you do sign up. And hopefully you guys have been tailing these YouTube plays over the last few days. Again, we're on a 6-0 run. We've cashed both of our 2 plays 3 days in a row now. Hopefully we can make it 4 days in a row. But yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Let's make some money tonight, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.